Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Brown, fellow citizens, my name is Ralph Waite. I've spent the past several years of my life deeply involved in the American political system. It started with me at the local level, working on problems that have become increasingly serious in our nation: healthcare, education, housing, among others. I ended up running for Congress last year in the 37th Congressional District in California. I campaigned for a year, day and night, and I became intimately aware of how politics operates in our country. I liked campaigning, but as time went on, I found myself, of necessity, spending most of my time raising money. I spent most of my time seeking out, even pandering, to special interest groups and to wealthy individuals. I learned that that's the way it's done in this country. I learned that our political electoral system is dominated by one issue: money, money, money. It was all but impossible to get to the issues, to engage our people in the real purpose of politics, serving the public interest, searching for answers, addressing our problems. And I found out that the voters and the vast majority of non-voters feel that this system of ours is corrupted, feel disillusioned and disgusted, feel that this system, as it now operates, has nothing to do with them or their lives. My fellow citizens, it is time to stop talking, and it is time to do something about it. Today, I am introducing a man who is committed to just that. And he will begin where it must begin: campaign financing. Governor Brown will not accept contributions of more than $100. No $5,000 from political action committees. No $5,000 from political action committees. No $1,000 from those who know that their money will purchase political influence. We want the people of this nation to feel that this is their government again. Please join us in this great and important effort. It will happen because with the proper leadership, the people of our nation are ready for reform. Please send your $100 gifts. Please call the campaign headquarters, 1-800-426-1112. Join with us. Join with Governor Brown, the leader who thought it was unwise to spray our neighborhood with dangerous pesticides. Governor Brown, the leader who thought we should invest in public transportation, not just highways. Governor Brown, the leader who balanced 8 state budgets. And whose governorship was bracketed by Republican governors who rank number 1 and number 2 as the biggest tax raisers in California history. Jerry, I've heard it said that you were governor before your time. Well, Jerry, the time has come for you to be president. My fellow citizens, please welcome the next president of the United States, Governor Jerry Brown.
Thanks. Good afternoon, and thank you for all being here. We're gathered today at the most sacred site of American democracy. It was right here that 2 centuries ago our forebears forged the miracle of democracy. And they called it a new order of the ages. In that hall, ordinary people, not any different from you or me, struggled and they argued and finally agreed on the ideas that make our government and the people of the United States stand apart from all others. I've come here today because I care about my country, and I care about its future, and I care about the future of this earth on which we all depend. I love being an American, and I love the creativity and the freedom that it gives. I love the things which our democracy stands for, the ideals and the truths that were worked out just a few feet away. These ideas have power, and they're stirring the human imagination in Eastern Europe, in Burma, and to the farthest reaches of Asia. In that spirit, I'm here in Philadelphia to stand as a candidate for the President of the United States. I'm here today to make a commitment to each of you that I tend to keep and honor. I will work with all my energy, and I will do whatever is necessary to bring about real change. This candidacy is not simply about me, it's about us. It's about you and all of you. Because we Americans confront a great crisis. The swelling tide of decline looming on the horizon constitutes a threat to America as deadly as any faced by our forebears. And we've only begun to reap the whirlwind of decline. And without decisive action on a large scale, of a nature totally unacknowledged in the current political debate, that decline is going to accelerate. Our founders' greatest fear was the danger posed by the merger of economic and political power. Indeed, when 200 years ago Thomas Jefferson started the Democratic Party, he proclaimed its purpose thus: we must put it out of the power of the few to riot on the labors of the many. And the calamity which our fathers feared most has in our time come to pass, an unholy alliance of private greed and corrupt politics. Our deteriorating economy, our collapsing political process, and our eroding system of values are the direct consequences of a few allowed to satisfy their appetites for greed and privilege. While the net worth of the average American family declined, the Forbes 400 richest American families saw their collective wealth increase by 300%. Did any other Americans see their net worth go up 3 times, 2 times? These stunning gains by the very rich didn't result from the success of hard work or as a reward earned by expanding the nation's prosperity and abundance to the benefit of all. And just yesterday, in the Philadelphia Sunday paper, it said it all. America, what went wrong? In a 9-part series, it asked the question, how the game was rigged against the middle class. It's right there. Right there. See that big line? That's the few. The middle class, their portion is right at the bottom. And the triumph of the forces of special privilege, with its devastating consequences to the entire nation, was engineered. And it was engineered with the complicity of Washington's entrenched politicians, Democrats and Republicans alike. Our democracy has been the object of a hostile takeover, engineered by a confederacy of corruption, careerism, and campaign consultants. And money has been the lubricant greasing the deal. Incredible sums, hundreds of millions of dollars from political action committees, from lobbyists, from wealthy patrons, have flooded into the campaign war chest of Washington's entrenched political elite, Democrats and Republicans alike. Seeking to secure careers of unlimited tenure, these politicians use the cash to fuel monstrous campaigns. And captained by political consultants, these campaigns are designed to crush any challenge to their power. And of course, the forces of greed are rewarded richly for their campaign contributions. Unjust tax breaks are only one form of the acknowledgement. Agreeing to look the other way, these politicians open the door to the plunder of savings and loans and a merger mania which has gutted some of the most respected companies in this country. The insatiable appetite for campaign dollars has turned the government into a stop and shop for every greedy and narrow interest in this country. The quid pro quo couldn't be any more straightforward. The legality of the barter can't mask its inherent corruptness, nor can any degree of dissembling obscure the truth that this bargain has been executed almost without exception to the detriment of the national interest and at the expense of the American people. The cost of this corruption has been staggering. Can it be a coincidence that the flood of rising crime and rampaging drugs in our cities has occurred when the poorest among us have suffered the most drastic reductions in their income? That's no accident, that's the cause. And together, private greed and corrupt power have launched a deadly assault on our common values. To rationalize greed, they champion materialism and self-interest over moral responsibility and community. What's in it for me? To protect their own power, they inject poisons into the body politic. Appeals to fear and selfishness replace calls to hope and sacrifice. Despairing of their own inability to influence the political process, legions of Americans, numbered in the millions, have swelled the ranks of the party of non-voters. How ironic that the spirit of democracy is bursting out all over the world, while in America, democratic choice is rendered illusory, and Thomas Jefferson's consent to the governed is mostly engineered and rarely earned. The crisis which led to our bloody Civil War was triggered by the secession of 1/3 of the states. Today, 1/2 of the people have stopped voting and seceded from the political democracy. It was shortly after the bombardment of Fort Sumner that President Lincoln explained that the central idea pervading the struggle was the necessity of proving that popular government was not an absurdity. Politics is at the heart of democracy, and when the political system loses respect and trust, then the decline of democracy will surely follow. And when democracy declines, the survival of America itself is put in jeopardy. This crisis has been triggered by the collapse of our two-party system. There's only one party, it's the incumbent party. There are, of course, two major political organizations with different names, but at their core, they're the same. They share the same worldview, and they share this and serve the same power of the same private interest, which in return finance the campaigns of both. When there are no substantial differences, there's no choice to be made. And without choice, there's no democracy. And when there's no democracy, there's no freedom. Only a system which entertains us with illusions. As one historian wrote nearly a century ago, when there's no alternative, no threat of defeat, there's no incentive to hold together. In the end, no policy, merely a scramble for special privileges. And the recent congressional pay raise is the most egregious example. Bouncing checks, skipping out on restaurant tabs, and self-serving pay increases are a manifestation of not only the insensity, but the contempt of entrenched politicians in Washington. And when our leaders fail to do their job and betray the people's confidence, then it's our inalienable right to strip them of their power through the great engine of democracy. The leaders of Washington's incumbent party, both Democrats and Republicans, have failed their duty. They've placed their own interest above the national interest. They have allowed themselves to be trapped and, in some cases, corrupted by the powerful forces of greed. It's time for them to go. And as always, the strength necessary to create the change we need must come from each of us. As it was at the beginning, America hinges on we the people, exercising that sovereignty we claimed in this city of Philadelphia. For 200 years, every generation has earned the title of American by following a simple moral command: that we give our children better than we receive, that we pass on a greater future with more freedom and more opportunity. However, we are now in danger of becoming the first generation to leave our children with a lesser America. In that hall, our forebears chose armed rebellion in defense of the very ideas and principle which are now being betrayed by a corrupted political process. On July 6, 1775, a full year before they declared their independence, the Continental Congress issued a declaration of the causes and necessity of taking up arms. In it they proclaimed, honor and justice and humanity forbid us to tamely surrender that freedom we received from our gallant ancestors and which our innocent posterity have a right to receive from us. We cannot endure the infamy and the guilt of resigning succeeding generations to that wretchedness which inevitably awaits them if we basely entail hereditary bondage upon them. If we continue to allow our children's rightful heritage to be plundered by politicians and greedy interests, if we don't halt the auctioning of our nation's assets to pay our debts, and if we force succeeding generations to pay with their future for the bills our own excesses have mounting up, then we will have betrayed our heritage. The future of America is with our children, and nothing less is our moral test. At stake is everything that Philadelphia means, not only to us, but to the world. I run for president because I believe America is at a crossroads. If we right now are prepared in the spirit of our ancestors to join in common cause, putting principle above party and patriotism above profits, then we can reclaim for ourselves and the children the idea and the promise of America. The hour has rung for us, we the people, to rise up and take back our democracy and our government. This election is simply not about changing elected officials. It's about changing the country and restoring what our forebears brought forth right here 200 years ago. And what's required is not just a candidate, but a candidacy, not merely a campaign, but a cause. The goal of this candidacy is a government that embodies the hope and the promise of our country and ensures that we never abandon that heritage. I'm here to make solemn a promise that I'm committed to be the catalyst for change. That's my commitment to you. But I can't work change alone. No woman and no man can do that. I need each of you to commit yourselves with me to work change for the common good. You and I must make our voices heard. Both you and I will need to sacrifice in order to achieve higher goals: decency, respect, duty, and honor, the very things that were embraced in this hall 200 years ago. You and I, each in our small way, must stand up to the forces that overwhelm us. You and I must deliver a message to those who run the United States like a private club that we are going to work change, fundamental change, and now. We must change beyond inwardly turning self-interest to interest in the greater good. We must see one another as brothers and sisters. I'm only one person with faults and flaws, and in my 50 years I've made a lot of mistakes. But I commit to you, to each one of you, that I'll do my utmost to continually change within myself. I don't pretend to know all the right questions, much less have all the right answers. And even if I did, it wouldn't make much difference unless we first decisively break the political deadlock and gridlock that is undermining this country. The campaign I propose must be a dynamic process in which the people are not only heard but are engaged. Only then can a consensus emerge which reflects the will of the people. Our cause, it's clear. We have to restore commitment to our nation, vitality to the values of our society, vigor to our economy, real democracy to our government, and purpose to our national life. And above all, secure our children's birthright of a greater America than we ourselves inherited. First, and overriding is the priority to restore the people to what is rightfully ours, the power of democracy. In corrupted hands, it's lifeless. In the hands of the people, it possesses an irrepressible magic. The current system promotes tenure over statesmanship. It erects barriers to real participation. Re-election upon re-election of the same incumbents occurs at the expense of new ideas, new energy, and honest representation. That's why I favor limiting the number of terms of those who serve in Congress. We'll never revitalize our market economy until the stranglehold of unrestrained greed is broken and every single American is protected by an economic Bill of Rights. And we must overhaul the fiscal management of our nation. And we know the answer is not to pour more tax dollars down the same bottomless pit. We know we must reform our system of health care to cover every single person. That's every one of us. But as long as the medical industry and the insurance companies are allowed to pour tens of millions of dollars into the campaign pockets of the people in Congress, nothing will get done. Understand that. We must break that stranglehold. We know we must improve the education we give our kids, but that will never happen either unless we break the shackles restraining our teachers and make the same commitment to developing technology for learning that we have for defense. And we know we'll not really be free until the rights of every American are secured, including the rights of women to control the destiny of their own bodies. And we'll never ensure the dignity and security of our senior citizens until their retirement and pension systems are safe from the danger of looting. And we must save our cities and generations of innocent children who are being destroyed by drugs and crime and hopelessness. But it will never happen unless we're willing to risk political defeat over this moral cause. I run for president because I believe this country deserves a real political choice. The election must be about something more than a debate between Democratic insiders and Republican insiders, debating over marginal changes. It's time to choose. The entrenched political establishment and the media believe that our country is on the right track and that its problems can be met with incremental efforts. If you really believe that, please don't vote for me. However, if you search your heart and my message rings true to you, then it's not enough to vote for me. If you share my vision, then join in this candidacy. It's time to choose. Stand with them or join with us. That's the question before all of us. This candidacy rests on a real faith in the people. That's why I won't accept any contribution over $100. If corruption is the problem, then just don't accept it. If political money is the issue, then don't take it. Now, no normal presidential campaign can survive on $100 contributions. This candidacy will succeed only if millions of Americans claim it as their own and carry it on their own shoulders. The experts say I can't win. They say a campaign based on broad participation and $100 contribution, it isn't serious, and it has to be ignored. Others dismiss the effort because they say I don't have the backing of powerful people. My message is too idealistic or maybe extreme. Now, I don't question the right of the Washington establishment to criticize and to scrutinize or form opinions on political viability. It's their privilege to believe that only card-carrying members of the incumbent party have a right to run for election. However, when they assume the power to confer legitimacy and thus determine who will be heard and who won't, then they steal what belongs to the voters, their right to choose. Now, some of you are saying to yourselves, there's not much that one person can do. But I tell you that together, we can prevail. Against their money, we have something stronger, the strength of countless hands. Against their propaganda machines, we have something more powerful, the voice of the people. Against their professional organization, we have something better, the votes. And ultimately, against their authority, we can call forth forces much greater. An idea, when matched to dedication, creates an unconquerable moral energy. My optimism flows from an unshakable belief in the kind of people we Americans are, and the kind of Americans from whom we descend. We carry in our hearts the true country, and that can't be stolen. We follow in the spirit of our ancestors, and that can't be broken. America lives today because for 200 years, there have been women and men who prized liberty above life itself. When our ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776, they did so literally in the shadow of a hangman's noose. Within weeks of the signing, the prospects of the United States appeared a lost cause. The fledgling army under George Washington had been routed on Long Island and Manhattan by the British Army. Retreating across New Jersey, the American troops barely escaped. The Congress fled Philadelphia. Thousands of Americans gave up, and by December, it all seemed lost. And then, at the darkest moment, a spark of hope appeared. A pamphlet written by a private titled The Crisis. These are the times that try men's souls, it began. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of men and women. Thomas Paine's words electrified the countryside. It was read in the churches and the town squares. Washington ordered it read to groups of his suffering soldiers, huddled in the cold. In fact, there was little else to sustain them when Washington, on Christmas Eve, led 2,500 Americans, starving and freezing across the ice-packed Delaware River, and in a snowstorm to take on 10,000 of the world's best army. And on Christmas, these brave men won a miraculous victory at Trenton. But only half the gamble had been won. Next was the British force at Princeton. However, by that moment, the term of enlistment of almost all Washington's Continentals was about to expire the next day. Standing on the ground, bloodstained by their feet in bitter cold, the regiments were formed in ranks to be addressed by Washington. For a year they had fought and suffered while others had stayed home. Washington explained to these veterans that they were needed now. If they would just agree to stay a few more weeks, they could do more than anything for their country. When he finished, he rode off to the side and waited. Not one man moved. Their silent refusal meant the end of everything. There'd be no America. In shock, Washington rode back in front. His usual reserve gave way as he pleaded with them. You have done all I asked, and more that can be reasonably expected. But your country is at stake, your wives, your homes, and all you hold dear. You've worn yourself out with fatigues and hardships, but we know not how to spare you. If you'll consent to stay only a month longer, you'll render that service to the cause of liberty and to your country, which you probably never can do under any other circumstances. We're facing, he concluded, The crisis, which is to decide our destiny. There is nothing left to be said. And he rode to the side to await their response. For a moment, no one stirred. And then, a lone veteran, whose name is lost to history, stood up and walked forward, saying that he could not go home if his country needed him. Then others stepped forward, by the twos, by the threes, until only a few, two enfeebled soldiers, remained in the original line. At that moment, America was born. These were the winter soldiers, and they are why we're here in Philadelphia today. Let each of us step forward and enlist as winter soldiers in the cause of America. Join with me, and first by the tens, then by the hundreds, then by the thousands, then by the hundreds of thousands, until by the millions, we, the people, reclaim our democracy. Anno et Chaeptus, may God bless this undertaking. Thank you.
In liberating strength, who more than self, their country love, and mercy more than life. America.
Jerry, I'm going to get back to California. It's awesome.
Success.
Is your wife just going to land?
And ever again divine. And you know, when I was in school, we used to sing it something like this. Listen here. Oh, beautiful, spacious skies.
That concludes live C-SPAN 2 coverage of the presidential campaign announcement of Jerry Brown. Following today's rally in Philadelphia, the candidate begins a tour, including stops in Boston, New York, and Chicago. For more information on the candidacy of Jerry Brown, you can write to his campaign organization at 643 Channel Road in Santa Monica, California. The zip code is 90402.
America, you know, God done shed his grace on this